Hello. Today I'm going to have a casual talk about morality, morals, and ethics, and see if we can't come to some kind of understanding about what they are and the purpose of their applications. We'll have to come back again and discuss it for a completer understanding, a more complete understanding. And that's what we do when we wish to have wisdom. We all have a sense of what they mean, but a complete understanding takes focus and returning to them to understand what they mean and how they can be applied in everyday life and set up a system whereby one can fall back on these terms and understand what they mean and what they can do for our betterment. So we'll start off with morals, and that is a recent term that wasn't used in the early philosophers, and Socrates was around, and even Confucius. I don't remember anything talked about morals, although they talked about values. The term seems to come from the Middle Ages, late Middle Ages, and from the Latin, and it might have an understanding that morals is used quite a lot by the church, a term morals, whereas studying some of the ancient Greeks, you don't hear that term. So it also might give us insight on why the church, often people feel as if morals weren't, if you don't have a religious background, where would your morals come from? I've heard this in some astute religious leaders. So we have to realize that the ancient Greeks, philosophers and wise men, talked about morals all the time. They have a study in philosophy called ethics, a major foundation of philosophy is ethics, which is the study of morals or values in a systematic way and their applications. So let's define morals and ethics more precisely. Morals is basically a value system, or not a system, but a values that we have that guide our behavior and our conduct. Knowing what is right, what is wrong for us, what is good, and what is not. So it's these values, these principles that we have that guide us, that we feel are important, most important. And there are higher values. Highest values we would call virtues. These are high values that we live up to, we try to live up, some of us, but we all have values that guide our life. We have moral values. But the higher plane of values are regarded as virtuous and good values for betterment, for better well-being, higher satisfaction of life, told to us by wise men, given to us by wise men, which we can debate and either accept or not accept. Now, ethics is the study of morals, which means basically it's similar in that it's understanding values, but more systematically as for applications and understanding those applications in our lives. So they're, in a sense, some sense, they're synonymous with each other. But ethics perhaps goes a little further in a systematic way. It's often called moral science as opposed to moral belief based on some kind of hearsay, acceptance by hearsay, rather than looked at critically thinking why we have value system, why we should have it, more proof and evidence through reason and logic and analysis to accept it as a part of our behavior and conduct and thought. So he gained this from experience and learning and observation. So, morality, again, the term came later and used mainly by the church. And so I think you have this correlation with the church presenting morality to the flock, whereas the ancient philosophers, both on the East, like in Confucius, was a moral philosopher. Socrates was considered a moral philosopher. Although the term wasn't used back then, it was ethical philosophy, which included morals. One saying that if we don't have the church, where are we going to get our morals? Well, just look back to ancient Greece and Confucius and moral philosophers who taught us not only values, but how to accept those values in a logical, reasonable manner so that it wasn't just accepted by the church without any proofs, but put to a test of why it should be, why will it bring us happiness or sense of well-being, and how can we use it, get motivated to use it, how will basically make us feel better about ourselves, about others, and to introduce it to society so that society will have a better well-being. Again, so we see that Aristotle and Plato both had what they felt was cardinal virtues. We also see the church has presented the public with what they considered cardinal virtue, which means highest values that one should live up to have a good life. Again, everyone has values they live by, whether you're a gangster or you're a businessman or a politician. You all have values. Some don't think about those values unless you ask them, and they'll say, well, I live by this standard, this rule of thumb. So when you get people to talk to you about that in the family or business, they will present the way they live their life, how they conduct their life, why they live their life the way they do. And if you ask them, they'll eventually tell you what kind of a value system that action is relied on. Now, before we leave the ambiguity of the church and philosophy presenting morality, we see that in the 1500s, when St. Aquinas was able to get hold of Aristotle's works, they resurfaced from basically the Islamic world had access to Aristotle's works. They say they were buried, but they were missing for quite a while in the Western world. And the Islamic world was able to find them first and utilize them, and had a renaissance early, while the Western world went into dark ages, so-called. They resurfaced, and St. Aquinas read them and adopted much of it and presented it to the Catholic authorities, and much of it was accepted or intertwined with the philosophy of the Catholic Church or the Christian Church. And so they adopted several, or the 4 cardinal virtues that Aristotle felt were the most important values that man should live up to have a good life and happy life. And these were temperance, prudence, fortitude, and justice. He added a few later on, but those were his 4 cardinal virtues. Now, the Catholic Church adopted those and added 3 more, which was hope, charity, hope, belief, and charity. I think that's right. Faith, rather than faith instead of belief. So it's interesting to note that though they adopted Aristotle's cardinal virtues, they added 3 more, but 2 of those are not really scientific. We don't use those words in science. Hope and faith are subjective and not based on evidence. It's beyond evidence. Whereas moral science of ethics would not include those. Certainly charity is a great virtue, high value. And I think that's where philosophy and the church differs, when they adopt a virtue of faith and hope. That's where you see the 2 separate, whereas, again, ethics is moral science. And when we talk about science, we don't talk about hope or faith. We talk about reality. What is? What's the evidence? What's the systematic evidence of a conclusion? It's an analysis by logic, mathematics, analysis, to get as close to the truth as possible. Statistical analysis often. So we don't really often come to 100% conclusion, but we do have enough of a conclusion to move forward and adopt it in most of our life. And it gives us, much of us, a stronger base to act on. If something can be proven almost absolute or close to it, to act, it's a more comforting feeling than to hope it will work, or to have faith that it will work. Is not scientific. So ethics is more scientific. than the moralities that we gain through the church or our mothers and fathers or our peers. Philosophy deals with, is a science of wisdom, love of wisdom, and wisdom is more on understanding through evidence. So when people say, where is your morality going to come from if it's not coming from the church or our parents or the school system or peers or good whoever, we must remind them, and this is what I'm trying to do, is remind people that ethics has been around for longer than the Christian church, or it's been in both in the East through, again, Confucius and many others. Even the I Ching book had quotations of wisdom and morality in it long before Confucius. So morality and value system has been around of what is right, what is wrong, how do we make that a part of our conduct and behavior and character, has been around for a long time and been studied by wise men of all cultures, Indigenous cultures had no Western thought. The Native Americans had a wisdom and value system. We all have a value system, even though we might consider it corrupt. Some people would consider it corrupt, but they act on that value system. What is right? What is wrong? Should our behavior and conduct to give us a certain well-being, and improve our situation, our betterment? We act on those value systems. We fall back on those value systems. What will make us happy in a broad sense? Not an elated state, but a subdued happiness, which means elongated happiness, which is more like a satisfaction, a deep satisfaction of well-being about ourselves and our people around us. Again, even gangsters have a value system. It might not be ours, and it needs to be reviewed. Maybe short-term satisfaction is often used by corrupted behavior, but it's still a value system. They think it will be better for them to rob a bank or do something of that nature to satisfy their immediate need, and they can't see the long-term situation where it'll be detrimental to their well-being down the line. So that's one of the problems with accepting that people do have value systems, just that some are better than others. And it's important for education and that's why we study morality and we study value systems, in order for people to understand why forethought and wisdom and understanding will bring a deeper satisfaction in their lives, and their conduct moving to and from a situation is important to know what will bring fuller and more potent sense of well-being. So I think that covers the intro of this, and we can go over ethics again, using the rules of right conduct and their applications of right conduct. And because of this ambiguity of morality, it's a nice term. It sounds very melodic in tone, and it's a nice word to listen to, but it is ambiguous in that it presents people accepting morality or values without analyzing them. And Socrates, again, was a moral philosopher, was considered the father of philosophy or systematic philosophy in the Western world, at least by many people. I align him often with Confucius, who was also a much more detailed philosopher in character, dealing with character and how to present yourself in this world, and also to give us a value system and a proper conduct to make life easier for and better for everyone. So the whole foundation of philosophy, I feel, is based on the most important aspect of philosophy. There are different divisions of philosophy: metaphysics, logic, epistemology, and ethics. And when you divide up philosophy, the study of philosophy, was the subgroups that were utilized early on. There's more now. Psychology was a part of philosophy in the beginning as well. So, of those groups, ethics, without proper ethics, without having a proper value system of what's right and wrong, what is good and what is not, the others seem quite meaningless. Metaphysics, what is knowledge for epistemology. If you can't act correctly, you'll destroy the world or you destroy yourself. So the others facets of wisdom become almost meaningless if we're not going to be doing the right actions and living the right way. So it is important field, and for some reason it hasn't changed that much over the many years, many centuries. Understanding has some certain principles that remain pretty consistent, whereas science, hard science, like astrology, we learn more and more and build on those principles and build on that knowledge, whereas wisdom has remained pretty consistent, and the understandings that we acquired even before Christianity was developed, or in the modern world, remain true today. So it's important to go back and look at what they said. And also, morality's become corrupted. People misunderstand the word, and I would like to get away from the word because of its ambiguity, and it's a newer word. Let's talk about values and what can guide our life. What are the principles that we can use in order to, and why should we use them in order to stabilize our life, give us something to fall back on when we make decisions for our conduct and what we believe in and what choices we make. This is what we should be concerned with, to make it a practical application in our everyday life in order to bring a better, more fluent, more easier lifestyle, a more deeply satisfied, tranquil lifestyle, a glorious lifestyle, and one that feels every choice is an opportunity to grow and to become better and to share that betterment with other humans and make the world a better place. And that's what the purpose of studying these terms is about. Not to argue about the terminology, not sit around defining it day after day, but utilizing it, these words, utilizing these concepts for betterment. We keep coming back to the idea that philosophy, or the love of wisdom, the love of understanding, is not practical. And it's ambiguous. It's too many fancy words so that nobody understands it. Well, we're trying to do away with that. Socrates tried to do away with it. Confucius tried to do away with it. Many philosophers tried to do away with that and bring it down to clarity. If you're going to find truth, you need clarity and focus. We've talked about this in the past. Those who take away from clarity by using 8-syllable, 10-syllable words in order for you to think they're smart, well, give them that. They're smart, but they're not wise. Because wise people, or wisdom, talks about understanding. If you take away from the understanding by using ambiguous terms, or terms that people don't know what the meaning are or is, why, that's fundamentally wrong. You need to focus and take it slow and enter into a realm of seriousness in order to, and gentleness in order to understand things completely, especially when you're dealing with truth. These are actions that are going to make your life better. Therefore, you need to have things pretty simple and clear. Simple and clear. I did not say not important. Very, very important. And you must be active in your studies. But don't make it worse by complicating issues. So that's one of the things we're always trying to do, is keep it clear in language, simple and clear and focused. And it's hard to do that. People want to argue, people want to they want to control, they want to deflect. See it all the time. So, one of the things we want to do is get away from morality, because it is ambiguous. Even if you look at it in a dictionary, you'll see there's different meanings, and because it's a relatively new meaning of word, I would prefer to fall back on values, value system, principles, using those terms that don't have as many subgroups or sub-meanings to it. And also there's connotations of a piety, a religious word, that morals come from a higher up. Again, the Catholic Church adopted Aristotle's 4 major cardinal virtues and added 3 more. So that's interesting that they actually adopted a wise man, because Aristotle was before Christianity. Exactly, maybe, I don't know exactly the dates of his birth, about, let's say, 250 BC. Now, let's find out what those values are before we leave today. and that is Aristotle's virtues were prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice. Did I cover those four? Plato's was wisdom, courage, moderation, and justice. And I covered the Catholic Church. And there's been others. Benevolence has been added by many. Courtesy is an Eastern value that's very important. Principle. There are principles that add more than one term too. For instance, one with nature, harmony with nature, nature's laws is one that was used both in Eastern and Western thought a great deal, especially early on. That one should be one with the natural laws of the universe, basically one with the path, one with the way, as a Eastern methodology on making life better. And courtesy is a great virtue in the Eastern philosophy. High regard for that value. Why are those values important? Well, you could define each value so you understand each value. Everybody has an idea of what they are, but it's important to really understand what those values mean for these wise men to feel as if they're the most important. You could add a lot more: generosity, kindness, gentleness. But there are others that moral codes or moral values that would take a few words to understand, and shouldn't just limit the idea of a one word like prudence. But what is prudence? Prudence is clear and forethought before your action, understanding, have a clear method of what's going on, what your action will be. It means a lot of things that need to be looked at. So you have a clear understanding of what he was saying, what a wise man would say. If you don't feel as Aristotle is wise, I suggest there's plenty of references on what he did for the Western world. Same as Plato. That's why I mentioned these men. And Socrates. Certainly there's been more, but these men really moved and had a great influence on Western thought in general. And so it's good to go back to the basic fundamentals. And we always do this in philosophy and understanding and wisdom, to go back and see where the source starts from, see where the terms come from, understand the terms before we go forward. See what values that wise men thought were important for our betterment, our better well-being, make us feel better, make us enjoy life. Life was for enjoyment in the sense that we get an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to better ourselves, better understanding so we can move fluently through life, even in hardships, ride the waves of hardship and come out good, come out understanding it was a lesson learned. That's a part of life, to learn from these hardships, so that they're really an opportunity to become stronger. Having a correct attitude, what motivates us to do, to overcome these temporary obstacles in order to get long-term satisfaction. This is what philosophy brings to people. And you start off understanding the terms, you go back and understand them a little better, and then move forward again. Always trying to not just get stuck in theories of what words mean and what's their purpose, but also using that foundation to improve oneself as an active opportunity to grow. We don't want to stay the same. We want to improve ourselves. That's what life gives us, the opportunity to grow. One of the basic foundations is to live and to be curious, and to grow is to make yourself feel better. Make people around you feel better. Make sure that you teach your younger generation how to feel better. It makes sense. It's logical. It's mathematically astute in its formula to live life better for not only for the earth and the world, the animals, for humans. So we want to go back to those virtues and see why they work. We might have them wrong. I disagree with some of the virtues, as I would have my own 4 or 6 virtues. They would be slightly different than what Aristotle and Confucius gave us, or Plato. But it's a good starting point for anyone to look and analyze why those were so important. Why did the church adopt them if they didn't think they were that important? All this is a part of what we're trying to accomplish in ethics, and using moral principles to guide us in our ethical understanding, ethical behavior, in order to produce a better person. And that's what life is about. That's what we're given the opportunity to do. So that is as practical as I can be at the moment. I will talk about one virtue that is mentioned by Plato, and that is wisdom, which is a part of the definition of philosophy. Love of wisdom is the definition of philosophy. So wisdom is considered the highest virtue by many, because with wisdom, with understanding, you'll get all the other virtues. You'll get all your other values. Because if you understand the value of these values or principles, then you'll accept them. If you don't understand them, you generally will not accept them, not deep within your mindset. Okay, so philosophy offers you a systematic way of looking at these values, or that's why it's called moral science. So you can look at it and analyze it, and to become convinced. And when you're convinced of a value that betters you, you'll be motivated to utilize it in your daily life. If you're convinced that courage is a high value, then you'll want to look at courage. And what is courage? Where can it be applied? Can it be applied in a negative sense? Or is it a two-sided coin where courage to do something positive is good? Courage to do something that's going to long-term be bad is not something you want. So you kind of look at that word and say, well, let's look at it, because someone might say courage is a good thing, and then somebody might, but it's really for a bad purpose. So courage is a two-headed coin in that sense. So I am not that thrilled about that being the highest virtue, whereas wisdom, again, I consider that the highest virtue, because if you understand everything, how things work, which wisdom is talking about, how to think, why you should think, how to think, then it will generate a method to understand and to accept other values, such as courtesy. Why do we think courtesy is important? Well, we use our wisdom to understand why. So, again, these are things that I'd like to talk about, discuss about, have a conversation about, and these are the fundamentals of philosophy. But it must have application. You must have an improvement along the way, step by step, inch by inch. Castles are made, beaches are made, produced. Each bit of sand contributes. It's a successive development. So it's not done overnight. But if you go back and review and focus on this to be a better person, to be a happier person, to be a better satisfied person, to enjoy life, to take the opportunity to grow and to help others, to teach others, that's what we're here for. We can always die. We will die. We will go out of existence. We all will at some point. But while we're here, we might as well enjoy ourselves and get a deep satisfaction, as well as teaching, as well as improving. And I feel that's the best purpose or best reason to be alive, or stay alive. And that's what we'll be talking about, how we can make choices. What is ours and what isn't? How do we make our choices to better ourselves? What methods? By reason and by evidence, by a scientific approach, by asking questions, by seeing what it isn't, and to see what is and what isn't. And that's what the fundamental purpose of philosophy is, and the fundamental purpose of morals and principles and value systems and ethics is about. Because without good ethics, you're not going to enjoy life. Without good ethics, you're not going to have a good value system. Without ethics, what the world is made of isn't important, because it won't exist for you. You won't understand it. You can't be a part of it. You may understand a portion of it, but if you understand it deeply, you're going to improve on yourself. If you understand something completely, you're going to follow that to better your life, to better others. You're going to utilize that principle. You're going to fall back on that principle. No matter what you do, whether you're a gangster or not, you feel something is important, you feel something is right, you're going to do it. Now, it might be wrong to other people because they haven't thought properly about it, or enough, or focused on the solutions properly. But they still feel it's going to better their life, whether it's robbing a bank or whatever it is. They feel their life will be better off with that situation. But that's a limited improvement, very limited betterment for a person. So we have to say it's true that you may feel better temporarily, but in the long run, it's going to make your life miserable. So this is a part of education that we have for ourselves and for others. And again, Socrates said, if a life is not worth living unless it is self-examined. I paraphrase that a little, but basically the same thing of what he was saying. You must examine your life. You must become a philosopher, a lover of wisdom, of understanding within yourself, with understanding your value system in order to enjoy life. It's not worth living if you don't understand things. If you can't enjoy life through understanding, if you live through ignorance, you'll be always in trouble. You'll be against the grain of the laws of nature set up. Nature has certain laws. You go uphill, it's going to take you longer. It's going to take more effort. If you go around the pond, it's going to take longer. If there's a way to go walk across the pond, then it would be shorter. But, of course, you also have to consider you might fall in the pond. But anyway, I think you understand what I'm saying there. It's all about understanding. It's all about creating a good value system, or a better value system than what we have, to improve on it. It is not pious. It's not a religious situation. This is something that's scientific and evidence proven. You don't have to believe somebody when they say you've got to be a good boy, you got to do this and you got to do it. You don't have to do that. You're going to have to say, why is it? You tell me this value is good. Tell me why. Show me why. Give me the evidence why that is better. If you can't, then let's go on to something else. If you want to help me understand it, then I'm open to listen. We're telling ourselves that, too. We sit there and tell ourselves, why should I do this? Why should I do this? Why shouldn't I do this? Let's think it over. Let's be prudent. Let's make it clear and have some forethought on this. Let's have some wisdom about this. Let's have some understanding about it. Why should we be gentle? Well, the idea to be gentle is you're dealing with truth. You want to know the truth. You have to be gentle with yourself. You have to be focused in order to find truth, to improve, to have a better well-being about yourself and your situation. That's why. So these are tests we put these value systems through. See if they're stable. See if they are long-lasting. See if they work. Experiment with them. Try to be gentle and see if you can get a better mark in school. See if you can focus and use fortitude. Have some strength to do these values. See if it works. Okay, enough said for today. Thank you very much.